All right, who's got one? Go ahead, my friend.
Bruce, I feel like you're bearing your soul when you sing, and with songs like Growing Up and My Hometown and Promised Land, I feel like I know you. Do I?
No. It's part of the job. That whole feeling like I know you thing is like. But I don't know. I think that it's like anything else. You obviously you put a lot of yourself in the songs, and it's work, and it's an aesthetic, and it's a presentation, and you can't write without pulling all the stuff up out of yourself. That's what makes it feel real. That's what makes it communication. But I guess it's always an incomplete picture. That's what keeps me writing. Anybody else got one?
After I heard Devils and Dust, my
Right.
first thought was that I'm just out of college, and I know some of my friends who are serving in Iraq, and I can see them being placed in the same kind of situation as the characters in the song, and I was wondering if that was your desired intent.
It was just to tell that story, from what felt like trying to tell a story from the inside. Like I said, it's a story about being placed in a situation where of untenable choices, where you're going to have to make decisions that you're going to have to live with the rest of your life, and you're 19 and you're 20 or 22 years old. It takes enormous courage. So I was really sort of just interested in bringing that forward, both what I felt that entailed and what that must feel like. And I always take a very non-rhetorical point of view. I try to write from the point of view of, say, the individual in the situation. It feels more human, and I think it reaches people better than some of rhetorical songwriting. Yeah, you try to get somebody to walk in those shoes. Basically that's so. And also you try to throw some light on what you feel is happening in your house, in where you live, and the place that you want to raise your children, and the kind of world and country you want to put them in. I've got young boys who are 14, and that's not far from fighting age, So that's on your mind also. Anybody else?
Hey.
All right.
So many of your songs are considered so cinematic, and likewise, it seems your work has really been influenced by film over the years, from Badlands to Robert Mitchum's Thunder Road, into your work with like Philadelphia and Dead Man Walking. Is there any film or particular films that have inspired Devils and Dust?
Not really. I think that I have a history of things that I've watched over the years. A lot of once again, I always go back to the basics, sort of the film noir in the 50s and 40s, and stuff like Out of the Past, Robert Mitchum's Out of the Past, and some B pictures too. I watched High Sierra last night, Humphrey Bogart, and it was great. I'd never seen it before, and it's filmed beautifully, and it's set in the West, where I set a lot of my songs. It was just a beautiful picture to look at, and he was terrific in it. But I think those issues of men and women struggling against the darkness in some fashion always fascinated me. It's always a metaphor for what we go through inside ourselves. I think once I got past 30, when films and novels and writers like James M. Cain and Jim Thompson. I don't know if you've ever read any Jim Thompson, but it's great stuff. And this is stuff that influenced a lot of my writing, and a lot of the writing on this record also. I sit down to create a physical world, one that has a breadth and depth, and I do think cinematically when I'm writing the lyrics. So it's quite influential for the movies. Anybody else got something? Go ahead, my friend.
As a person of color in America, the lyrics of many of your songs, American Skin, Land of Hope and Dreams, really resonate with my personal experiences of being sometimes invisible, sometimes too visible, and always somehow in the margins. And I'm wondering, as a white man in America, what experiences do you tap into that you're able to capture in such a poignant way the struggles that many minority people go through?
I don't know. I grew up in a integrated community. I grew up In Freehold, there was a little street where there was, you know, it was black and white people, and I grew up with it as a child. I traveled, obviously, you know, an integrated band my whole life, and over the years, from time to time, we have seen a few things, you know. I don't know. I also think it goes to that deeper sense of feeling invisible. That was something I felt very, very strongly myself, probably for the first 16 or 17 years of my life. I really felt like just not there, and it was a very powerful and really unpleasant experience, you know. And I'm sure it was the primary thing that made me want to write and sing was I want to be recognized, you know, just that I'm here, you know, my existence, what I think, what I have to say, you know, and I'm going to have to seize that in some fashion. That was probably the primary motivation behind picking up the guitar and playing, how it connects, you know. I grew up during the era of civil rights struggle, and lived in two towns where there was a lot of rioting, and had white and black friends all the time, you know, and saw a lot of, it wasn't hard to find a prejudice in those days, you know, very easy to find in any small town across America. But I really think it was the internal feeling of invisibility that I felt myself, and I felt so deeply, and I sort of said, well, I didn't like that. I don't think anybody else gonna like that either. You know, so that's probably, you know, that's what kind of sent me in that direction and influenced a lot of just picking up the guitar and my songwriting later on. Anybody else?
I'm a longtime fan, and I struggle to make my wife understand my devotion to your music.
All right.
True. I've taken her to a dozen shows over the last couple of years, and while she loves Clarence,
I got you. What about the skinny Italian guy standing next to you?
I struggled to get my devotion over to her. I try to explain the themes of hope and redemption that run through your music, and she doesn't get it. How would you explain to a non-fan or someone who's never heard your music what your music is all about?
Well, I wouldn't try to explain it. As I said, sort of trying to explain music is like, you know, talking about sex. You know, it's better when demonstrated, and and so that's my best shot. What else we got?
Right here, Bruce. Spiritual and religious concerns have had a genuine presence in your work from the very beginning, and seem to have particular thematic resonance on such albums as Tunnel of Love and The Rising. Since some of your acknowledged influences beyond the musical realm, like Flannery O'Connor
Right.
and Walker Percy and John Ford, for example, manifested a certain Catholic artistic sensibility, to what extent does your faith inform your work and your writing?
Well, you know, I'm a runaway Catholic, and I have pagan babies at home, you know, so so I'm not sure exactly how to answer the whole thing. But once you're in, you know, you can't get out. You know, I thought that I could. When I got out of Catholic school, I said, "See ya, suckers," you know, and but as I began to write and live, I found that it was just always there. It's just always there, and I don't have a problem with it. I draw from it a lot. You know, a lot of my imagery from when I was a kid to this record is very, you know, it's religious imagery. Religious imagery is powerful. It is a language that people understand. It's a language that we have in common. Everybody has that geography inside them, you know, it's a spiritual geography of some sort. Thunder Road, I was just singing, you know, lovers, crosses, roses. I mean, it's just all through my music, and I'm at a place where I don't need to like hold it off, right? And I don't need to necessarily dive in. You know, I'm at a pretty good place with it at this point, and I realize it's just me. It was the way I was brought up. It's the things that terrified me and I suppose thrilled me in many strange ways from when I was a kid. You know, that was a mysterious world. The Catholic school world in the 50s was a world of many shadows and mysteries and certainly a good deal of brutality, but also of a, man, you're in a secret club, you know. But so I'm kind of, I'm just at ease with it, and I just let it roll. I let it roll through my music now and roll out, and I use it for my own guidelines in different ways. You know, hope I explained that semi-clearly enough. Anybody else?
Hi. You've written songs about your mother, your father, and your sisters and their hard times and some personal subjects. How did they react?
Well, my dad, you know, I thought he might not like the songs because they tended to be critical, but when I asked him what ones he liked, he said the ones about me, you know, so I'm not sure what that meant, that it just sort of people like being written about in general, maybe, yeah. But it was a dialogue. You know, it opened up a dialogue that we were never going to be able to have, or rarely had, just through speaking, you know. And it was kind of helpful. It was helpful to me anyway. And he didn't seem to mind, you know. And it was sort of, you know, one, music is a nonverbal, you know, it's a language, you know. And sometimes the people go to it because sometimes the language we speak every day doesn't work that well, you know. Sometimes we don't communicate very well face to face and just with words, and so music is a lovely. It's a lovely. It can be a lovely alternative when you can't reach somebody. Sometimes you can reach somebody that way. So, anybody else?
Yeah. Hey, Bruce. When you were coming out in the early '70s, it was at the end of the British musical invasion, especially the Beatles. But yet your music seems so much more rooted in American soul and folk with not much British influence. So, except for like a mention or two in a song, how did the Beatles influence your music?
A lot of the stuff that was more British influenced, if you pick up tracks, believe it or not, there's quite a bit of that on it, you know, particularly during the River. There was a lot of things that I think, loose ends and things that had a slightly more of a British feel. I think I might have tended to take them off because they slipped very much into a sort of a pop genre that I was interested in staying on the edges of, and also I was interested in writing in an American style. You know, and that was important to me, and so I tended to focus on those things when I chose songs for my record. Anybody else before we call it a night? Yeah.
Over the years, you've sort of developed this reputation as rock and roll's nice guy. I would imagine that must become a burden once in a while, and I'm wondering if you
Well,
ever
I can
want
come out and slap you around a little bit if you want. But go ahead.
I just got called out.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you if you ever want to go Johnny Rotten on somebody once in a while, but I guess you just did it on me.
Well, you know, well, you do. You know, it's one of those things. I don't know what to say about it. I kind of roll about my way, and I tend to respond to people. I guess I was kind of lucky in that I sort of generally like people. I suppose if you don't catch me at the wrong moment, you know, I generally like people, and so that helps in my job. So maybe that had something to do with it. But I don't know about the rest.
You want to do one more?
Yes, please.
One more.
Bruce, you've mentioned that when you come up with a set list for a show, you'd like to take the crowd on a journey from point A to point B.
All right.
How'd you come up with that journey that you've taken us as a crowd on tonight?
All right. I had a new song, a record I'm trying to sell, and so got to sing a few of those, you know. And I think I wasn't going to play Thunder Road 'cause I sang it a lot, but at the same time, it's such a seminal song for me, and maybe, you know, the most important song off of Born to Run, in a funny sort of way, you know. So that felt like, you know, plus I hadn't played it on a piano much, and I enjoy sitting on the piano and playing it. I just try to do a few things that show the different types of songwriting and how I approach them. Some of them are very internal and very psychological, and also some of them are very, you research for and you try to create other worlds, and some are just pop songwriting. You're trying to be Smokey Robinson. You're trying to come up with a cool phrase that people are going to sing back to you. So I kind of looked at a general body of work and tried to pull things out. Then something about men and women, and pull things out from that with different emotional tonalities from different parts of my career. So it wasn't too hard. Came up with it pretty easy. Well, all I can say is I had a good time, and I'm glad. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and thank you. And I'll be seeing you out on the road.